Welcome back to the channel. My name is Melanie and I'm super jazzed to be here. Today, we are talking about the Scorpio new moon. This moon falls on the 14th and 15th of November, and there's a lot of planets going direct in the sky at the same time or closely hereafter. So I really feel like this new moon is a ideal opportunity to get some good energy flow in motion. I am going to have my little puppy Ripley in this video, so please bear with me if I am all over the place or if something goes horribly awry. He's only 10 weeks and a little rambunctious. As always, in our new moon series, I'm going to cover the archetype we're working with. This month it is Scorpio, and then we will talk about how to integrate that into a new moon ritual and different ways you can use the energy of the Scorpion archetype for your advantage this new moon.
Isn't that right, puppy? Isn't that right? Yeah, you're so cute.
So let's talk about these 5 main attributes. We're going to talk about the element, the modality, Scorpio's glyph, the house that Scorpio is at home in, and the areas of your lives that it subsequently influences. And then we will also talk about its planetary ruler. So of course, Scorpio is a water sign. Because Scorpio is a water sign, it's very emotional, deep feeling, passionate, intuitive. This is both a gift and can sometimes be a negative or a less than desirable trait. But Scorpio is no different than the other 2 water signs in having a very intense emotional world, very in tune with feelings, very deep and passionate feelings, tends to be fairly artistic and expressive, whether that would be verbally or simply like painting, creating. They can really put a lot of emotional passion and fervor behind endeavors. They can sometimes become a little bit protective and self-isolating and reclusive. This more often than not is a defense strategy. They have a lot of feelings that can get hurt easily, and once they get hurt, it's quite hard to get forgiveness from a Scorpio. So having this kind of protective distance from people out and around them, or that kind of classic emotional wall or barrier to protect themselves and keep them a little more safe feeling, is very common in all water signs, especially in Scorpio. Not only is Scorpio a water sign, but its planetary ruler is Pluto. This definitely lends to that kind of intensity aspect behind Scorpios and the archetype in general. Pluto is all about transformation, and this is predominantly seen through a death and a rebirth process, letting the old die away so that something new can take its place. As well as ruling death and rebirth, it is the planet of like the mystery, the dark topics, a little bit more of like those deep hidden taboo. It also tends to deal with things like power struggles or power in general. It's a little bit of the mystery unknown vibe. Pluto and subsequently Scorpio can get a rap for being really dark, really mysterious, really obsessive, controlling, and possessive because of that mystery power, getting to the heart of the deep emotional topics, you know, like the things that make other people uncomfortable. These people, the Scorpio archetype, people with strong Pluto placements, tend to dive right in. They are not scared of those darker topics. They're not scared of the dark night of the soul, as it were, and they are not scared to be there for other people, but also to journey there within themselves. This is amplified by the fact that it is a water sign. So Pluto and a water sign, you get a Scorpio. So we've talked about being a water sign, being ruled by Pluto, and it is also the ruler and at home in the 8th house. The areas of the life or your life that the 8th house encompasses would be things like sex, intimacy, shared finances, death and rebirth, so like transformation, inheritance, different kind of like business goals or ventures. It is kind of a money house. It's sometimes to do with like your family inheritance and different things of like how money comes to you, sometimes in not a great way, like someone passes away or an estate is left to you. It's a money house, but not in like the traditional sense you think of as like a Taurus money house, for example. It also talks about things like your partner's resources, power play, how you relate to other people in your life, in regards to power, this is amplified by Pluto again being that power dynamic. I say power and I mean it in both a really positive way, like self-empowerment and knowing yourself and knowing your deepest, most intrinsic pros and cons of your own self, which gives you that kind of assurance in knowing who you are and being able to come from a place of knowing thyself. Kind of power, that empowerment where like you know your own demons and no one can use them against you because you've faced your own shadows and you know what's in there. But it can also be like unhealthy power plays, especially in the bedroom with Scorpio's focus on intimacy and sex and your partner. It can get really kind of manipulative, a little bit controlling and obsessive. The intensity of Scorpio being a water sign and having that energetic overseer of Pluto with the mysterious power play can really, I mean, it's great for the whole fantasy world. And we sometimes like to fantasize about this type of dynamic of having that obsessive lover who is so committed and intrigued and fascinated by you that they want to know everything about you, all your deep, dark secrets. And it can be good in a book, but it might not be the most healthy, constructive relationship in real life. It's just something the archetype has to be aware of. I think people in the astrology community really paint a bad picture because they tend to say that Scorpios are almost vengeful and rude and mean and negative and manipulative. And while the shadow aspect of Scorpio can definitely be those things, it does not have to be that way. Ripley unplugged my microphone, so some of this video is going to have better audio quality than other parts of this video, and I'm sorry, you're gonna have to deal with it. So we've talked about Scorpio being a water sign, we've talked about Scorpio having Pluto as its planetary ruler and being at home in the 8th house. It is also a fixed zodiac sign. Scorpio's modality being fixed definitely lends to that piercing, digging, intense, and when they're dealing with other people, sometimes intrusive or invasive aspect. Fixed signs, unfortunately, are not too into change, so having this resistance to change incorporated in the zodiac archetype of Scorpio, who is ruled by the planet of transformation and is very much about deaths and rebirths, can cause some conflict. I say this tentatively because it really depends on people's placements in their charts, but a lot of the time Scorpio will go through massive transformations and changes, but there is a tinge of pain or difficulty or struggle to them. They're not necessarily easy changes. That's why we call it death and rebirth. You gotta die first, which involves some work or some, shadow work, trauma work, looking at some things that you really don't want to, really getting deep. So this level of transformation can be painful. The modality of Scorpio being fixed, I think, adds a little bit of an edge to the transformative powers of Pluto in this archetype. Traditionally, fixed signs are very slow and steady. They tend to be unshakable. These are the people who will get a job done. They have incredible follow-through. They have great opinions, usually very well thought out opinions, but hard to change. So once they commit to something, they're rather invested, so they're usually slow to commit. They're definitely not into change. I think that's the most classic way to view a fixed sign. They're fixed in place. This can be for good or bad. They can tend to get stuck in a job or relationship. They can tend to just get stuck in the way they think and view the world. But that also means that when they know they're right and they firmly believe, they don't question their faith, or they don't question things that they have stood behind and believe in. So again, a pro and con. The fifth aspect that I want to talk about the Scorpio archetype would be the fact that its glyph is a scorpion. The symbolism and the visual aid that this has to helping you understand the traits of Scorpio is aplenty. Scorpios have obviously hard exteriors. They've got the intense shell that's really hard to penetrate. They tend to be reclusive and nocturnal in nature. They don't live in packs or in groups. They do spend a lot of time alone, a lot of time in their internal world. I think this visual and hypothetical comparison between the people of the Scorpion zodiac and the actual scorpion animal is really helpful. Of course, scorpions also have a very poisonous and very intense stinger. Don't eat my bed. The stinger is a great visual aid because, well, it's piercing and can cause a lot of damage by being very straight to the point and going very deep. This is the aspect of fixed water, intense pressure. All of that water is in one spot, like a pressure washer. You can pressurize water and focus it so precisely that it'll carve diamonds, clean off paint from houses, which is why I like the visualization of the stinger being very piercing, very penetrating. It's like an up-close pressure washer stream of intensity to get to the heart of something, you know? Most of the time, for a Scorpio to really hurt you, you've got to be quite close with them. Just like the animal has its prey in its little pinchers and then stabs it. It can be a pretty good visual representation of how it feels to have a Scorpio who's pissed off at you, or to have a Scorpio that's coming for you in any sense.
Yeah, sleep in the sun. Sleep.
It's hard to encompass both the positive and the negative of the Scorpio archetype, because I feel like people have such intense biases towards this archetype before they have worked with the energy. Scorpio is not for the faint of heart. It is not easy to be a Scorpio. It's not easy to work with Scorpio energy because you have to be willing to let things die. And I think that is probably one of our biggest predicaments as individuals in the world today. Whether it is a negative programming that you have in your brain from childhood that you're not enough, or you can't do something, or you're always going to be poor. It's breaking and killing off these negative mental structures and programs that is going to need to occur in order for us to move forward and to create or transform into something new, something bright, something lighter. So working with this new moon and the Scorpio archetype this time of year after the election, there's a lot of things going on, and we have a lot of potential to move forward into a better energetic space, a better personal space, globally speaking, in our communities. There is a call to move forward right now. And I think in order to utilize this new moon properly, we have to really evaluate what we need to let die in our lives. So before I get too into how I think you could use this new moon and the Scorpion archetype, I think it's important that we form our own kind of thoughts and give ourselves space to think about how we feel about something before we just look for an answer from somebody else. So with the information I've provided about Scorpio, take a couple minutes here to reflect on your life and think about how you might want to work with this archetype if you do want to work with the Scorpio new moon energy. When you guys get back, I'll be talking about some new moon intentions that I plan on setting, or different affirmations I'll be using. I'll also give you a few different ideas of some rituals that might be beneficial for you for this new moon. I'll see you guys in a couple minutes. Coming back out of that kind of mini meditation, self-reflection period, I think I want to mention that with the state that our world is in, there is a lot of negativity and darkness and really intense things happening. And I'm going to use the all-encompassing word evil because it kind of sums up anything that's not good juju and puts it in one basket for me. So there's a lot of evil things going on in this planet, just like there always will be and always has been. I think the internet and how connected we are can really compound this and really make us feel small and helpless. So for me, how I am planning on working with the Scorpio archetype and the new moon energy would be to evaluate things that no longer serve me or the higher good or the world or the planet. I think there are lots of internal personal ways we can look at what needs to die. We might not have the power to dismantle a system overnight. It might take more than lighting a candle in our window to cause the change, real change, the change in the hearts of people around the world. But what we can do is connect to our communities, connect in ourselves. We need to be really willing to look deep at our shit. And I think the Scorpio archetype really allows us to do that. Whether or not you're looking at something that has to do with the current state of the world, or if you're looking at traumatic childhood events, or your relationship, or your understanding of money, it doesn't really matter what it is, but I'm a firm believer that our external world reflects our internal world, and the fixed water elements of Scorpio, as well as Pluto's transformative powers, in combination with the new beginnings and the gestation period that the new moon is an ideal opportunity. A few ritual ideas that I would like to offer up. I would recommend things like release work. So writing down things you don't want to bring forward with you anymore on a piece of paper and burning it. Or because Scorpio is a water sign, you can always write something down that is not going to ruin the environment and discard of it in a body of water. Sometimes I like to water marker on rocks and throw them into a river or a lake, skipping stones and letting go of your worries while you do so. Really use that transformative power of the Scorpio archetype in combination with the new moon, which is all about new beginnings, starting something new, and release work already. So the fact that it's a new moon in Scorpio really doubles down on that transformative power. Ripley, stop chewing on my tripod, please.
Oh, Ripley.
This is also a surprisingly good time to do some manifestation work for anything, really. Money or an ideal relationship, because the 8th house is so intensely involved in sex and intimacy. You can do sex rituals with a partner or solo. It's just about using that kind of orgasmic bliss energy to draw in whatever you are trying to manifest. So Scorpio is a great sign, as well as the new moon, for manifesting, especially if you're looking at using sex magic. I would also recommend looking at your understanding and working with the concept of death. Integral part of life and something that we need for life to exist and for life to have the value that it does is death. Taking this time and evaluating what death means to you, remembering loved ones you've lost, or just honoring ancestors or people who have passed in general is a great thing to do right now as well. Getting really intimate with your friends and your partner, really being there for people when they need you. Like, there is a lot going on in this world. There is quarantine and elections and race wars and threat of civil war in America and Indigenous people in Canada being segregated and the environment being butchered and people in... There's so many people out there who are in dark places and who are hurting, and the Scorpio archetype is such a teacher for being there for people in their dark times. We need to focus on building communities, focus on building authentic, intimate relationships with our partners, with our family, and with our friends. As much as we have to be separate right now and not gather in large groups, I think good one-on-one phone calls, good heart-to-hearts, real connection is very nourishing for this time of year and with these archetypes at play here. This could also include or involve cutting people off, letting relationships die that no longer serve you, setting healthy boundaries about how much you give and how much you're a crutch for other people if you are always there for them in their dark time. I think it's a great time for things like shadow work. I think if you want to use artistic expression like painting or clay or making mandalas or sewing or writing poetry, it's a good time to use those skills to get some of those heavy, deeper emotions out, to express and release some of the heaviness that can be accompanied with deaths and rebirths. Of course, Like everyone in the world, I'm a sucker for a good gratitude ritual, so you can always write down things that you're thankful for. Acknowledge the hardships and the pains and the traumas and thank them and the universe and whoever was involved for the lessons. And make sure you learn the lessons. Take those lessons away or else it's gonna happen again. Because Scorpio does have kind of a resistance to change and can get their feelings really hurt often because they're so sensitive or so aware of emotions, it can be really hard for them to forgive people. This would be a great time to maybe go through that mental list that you might have of people who have wronged you or situations that you didn't feel good in, and evaluate if someone is deserving of your forgiveness. And this could be yourself or other people from other situations. Having understanding and being able to forgive people is not about putting yourself in the situation to be hurt again, but it's about freeing yourself from the emotional baggage that can come from holding a grudge. It might be time for you to forgive someone, to let something go, not for them, but so that you can be lighter to move forward. I mean this in regards to yourself as well. If you have done the best you can during quarantine, or if you have, given it your all, stop picking yourself apart. Give yourself some freedom, give yourself some forgiveness, take a deep breath, constructive, moving you forward, feel it, sit in those feelings, process it, but then at the end of the day, you gotta let it go. Those are a few ways that I could see using the Scorpio archetype. Of course, there are many others, and I would love to hear what kind of rituals or intentions or journal prompts that you have decided to work with during this new moon for you. So let me know in the comments below what you've got going on. I do want to give a few positive affirmations, which I view as smaller ways to anchor in large energy in your everyday life. For me, this moon cycle, it's going to all be about releasing and accepting and just kind of letting go. So I'd recommend using I release statements or I let go of statements. So I release my anger at this, or I let go of the pain around this. Giving yourself permission to let go of the anger or the hurt or the pain or the fear or the anxiety around something can be the first step into actually not experiencing that emotion anymore. I'm allowed to change my mind. I'm allowed to change my opinion. I'm allowed to come to new conclusions. I am confident and powerful and able to make my own choices. I enjoy my sexuality. I enjoy my body. I let blank go. I release the need to hold on to a grudge. I forgive blank for blank. I forgive myself for blank. You're going to want to choose an affirmation that is appropriate for your intention. The goal of setting affirmations and repeating them throughout your everyday life is to anchor in the emotion, the feeling behind the intention, what it would feel like to exist as if your intention was already so. I hope that this new moon in Scorpio really provides that kind of push for you. There is a lot of planets coming direct, which means they're getting out of the retrograde cycles around this new moon and shortly after this new moon. There should be an ease of energy after this new moon. It's kind of kicking you off into a more astrologically smooth sailing period. Thank you so much for being here with me. I know the videos have been inconsistent on the channel, but the world's a little topsy-turvy. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments below how you are planning to celebrate or work with this new moon and Scorpio energy. I hope to see you guys next time. Remember, you can do absolutely anything because you are a badass. Bye-bye! Mwah.